Hey everyone, so in this video I wanted to just take a look at some of the untold lore and cut content from Jak and Daxter that was found in the Limited Run Games Design Bible. There are some really cool concepts that were unused or just untold in the game, which is just really fascinating to read about, so let's take a look. I'm also making this video to let all you guys know that the Design Bible is now up for download on the Jak and Daxter archive, but more on that later. Now, a lot of these weren't exactly told or even implemented in the final game. They're just details that weren't really needed in the game, but were thought up by the artists or writers, etc. For example, there are a lot of details and design choices about the zoomer, which are really cool, but aren't exactly necessary to know when you're playing the game. They're just there from a designer's point of view. So keep this in mind when going through all of this. A lot of the stuff in this book wasn't exactly in the final game. First off, let's start with Jak himself. There's some really cool stuff here. First, the armor plates he wears on his shoulder and wrist were actually there to protect Jak from Daxter's claws. Obviously, Jak wouldn't have worn them to begin with because of this, but it's cool to know. Next, something I found really interesting is the ring on his chest is actually what helps him channel and hold Eco when Jak is powered up. It says the ring glows when powered, but giving the game a quick look, it seems this feature never made it to the actual game. And yes, this is the PS4 version, but I did give the PS2 version a quick look and it's the same. Still, it's pretty awesome how Naughty Dog put this much thought into their character design. Jak's backpack, where he keeps his power cells, is also apparently a convenient spot for Sidekick to hide. Again, not something that made it to the game, but cool nonetheless. Lastly, we have Jak's wrist and ankle straps. His wrist straps were used to secure his hands to the handles of the zoomer as to not lose control, and his ankle straps were used to pad his feet from the ground, as well as provide cushioning inside the zoomer boots. So let's move on to Jak's racing goggles. So the big red lens on his right is what the heads-up display, game stats, and stuff like that is meant to show. The lens is also made of ruby to block glare from light as well as sharpen his view. The other lens on his left is what I assume is what you're looking through when you go into first-person mode. This lens can retract and magnify by 16 times. The goggles use an emotion sensor, which uses electrical pulses to sense the user's desired magnification, heads-up display modes, and so on. Basically, whatever you want the lenses to do, they'll detect it and do it for you. Lastly, there's a chin strap, which clips together when racing. The racing goggles are so cool, I really wish I had a pair of my own. Now, there isn't too much information about Daxter, so let's just move on to our arch-villains. Starting with Maya, it seems she is actually an old woman, but thanks to the powers of Dark Eco, she possesses the body of a young woman. It also says that it's her dark sorcery that creates the army of one-hit enemies, which appear to be an early concept for the Babak Lurker. A side effect of sorcery with Dark Eco and maintaining her perpetual youth, her skin is greyed and her eyes have yellowed. Now, you might have already noticed this, I didn't because I'm just a dumbass, but she actually has armor on her body made of precursor metal. They not only provide her with protection, but their incredible density helps keep the Dark Eco from escaping her body. This last part is pretty interesting, I'm just gonna quote the whole thing. The evil sister has been known to dance herself into a vision-inducing trance, and then, in a voice that is not her own, to scream prophecies and predict the future. I'm not really sure what to make of this, to be honest. Let's take a look at Gol. So, we know that Gol and Maya have exposed themselves and done experiments with Dark Eco many times, but it's had a big effect on Gol. Due to his countless experiments, he has withered away, both his body and his soul, and due to this, his powers have increased. It also says that Maya is Gol's older sister. He plans to eventually transfer his mind into a precursor robot. Gol has also worked extensively with precursor metal. He created Maya's armor plating, as well as his Ultra Protective Glove, which is impervious to even Dark Eco. When in his laboratory, he uses the loops on his belt to fasten himself to tethers which hang from the walls and attach to the floor. His legs and feet are fragile from lack of use, which is why they're covered in bandages. When he does leave his lab, he will attach these iron cannonballs to his midsection as to not float away. So we're just going to skip past to the rest of the characters, enemies, and vehicles and look at what I think to be the most interesting part of the book, the section on the precursor technology. So it goes on to say a lot of what we already know. The precursors were a super advanced culture who occupied the world long ago and left their robotic ruins all throughout the world. It's unclear what they were used for, but it is clear the precursors used Eco for their benefit. Whether or not Eco was the reason for their downfall remains a mystery. It also says that some of the precursors' technology can be brought back to life if its secrets can be discovered. Then we have a section about the precursor orbs. It says that the use for these is unknown, but some have speculated they were used to power the giant robots that littered the planet, while others suggest they were integral, but not the actual source of power. Then we have a translation of the precursor alphabet, which is awesome. Then we have one of the most interesting pages in the whole book. This one details the precursor robots themselves. I'm just going to quote this entire paragraph, it's incredibly interesting. The precursors use giant robots, shielded from dark eco and powered by light eco hearts, to shape barren rocks into life-sustaining planets. Even the wisest sages are unaware that the robots littering the landscapes were the bulldozers used to create their world. In fact, on all other planets the precursors have created, they and their robots leave no traces when the work is done. So that's a lot to take in. Let's look at this bit by bit. So the precursors used these robots to create worlds. How they used the robots, we'll look at that in a second. They were powered by light eco hearts and were shielded from dark eco. I think this last point is especially interesting. On all other planets the precursors have created, they and their robots leave no traces when the work is done. What this implies is that Jak and Daxter's world is unfinished. Now, we already knew that from a quote from Seam in Jak 3.
Strange. It speaks an ancient dialect, the earliest precursor forms. Something about reclaiming this unfinished world.
But let's think about this. On other worlds the precursors created, would the inhabitants even know of the precursors' existence, or that they created their worlds? Did the precursors leave behind temples and artifacts on the finished planets? It leaves room for some interesting questions. Now let's look at how these robots actually function. First is the eco refueling tube. This is the long snout-like beak that protrudes from the robot's heads. They used these to suck eco from the planet, which replenishes the robot's supplies. Next we have the shoulder bolts. These emit waves of fine-tuned eco to create water and atmosphere. Let's look at their arms. While in creation mode, the left arm becomes a hydraulic chisel, shooting superheated metallic filaments that the precursors used to carve fine detail. The right arm houses a large eco gun, capable of shooting out large glowing masses of eco. These balls were the basic building blocks used for creating hills, valleys, continents, and oceans. The robots also had ramjet rocket shoes, which were capable of propelling the robots across a planet or across the universe. These robots are often found in their default mode, with their creation tools hidden inside their lower arm housings and shoulder bolts folded neatly inside. Utility hands show instead. So let's take a look at all of that. So the long snout things you see on all the precursor robots, they were used to refuel the robots with eco. These robots were also the things that created pretty much everything in existence. These robots are pretty massive as well if they're able to propel themselves across planets and across the universe. One quick thing to note about the oracles. It says they are watching and waiting before time memorable. Perhaps they were around when the precursors were building the world. Maybe the precursors went to them for knowledge, or stored knowledge within them, who knows. Lastly, I wanted to briefly touch upon some of the story and plot ideas. I'm not going to go too in depth about this section, instead I just want to highlight some of the changes that were made. This appears to be the first plot synopsis of the game, so there are a lot of very interesting differences. First off, it says that to change your friend, or Daxter, back, we must trek far north to find the sage named Finn, who works with Dark Eco. Later on, it says on your journey we learn about the precursors and find a fully intact robot buried deep underground. Your mentor's daughter, or Kira, discovers that their power source, Light Eco, may be the only way to change Daxter back. We eventually find out about Finn and his evil sister's plan to destroy the world by releasing vast underground stores of Dark Eco. With the use of a precursor robot the sages were forced to modify. It says that you battle your way to Finn's lab just as their robot is being launched. In the process, you are trapped and all appears to be lost until Kira crashes through the lab ceiling using the precursor robot you found underground earlier, but in doing so, drains its power. Now a master of the light eco sciences, Kira realizes she can extract more of this energy from your body, which was infused into you during the accident in the ruins. Once the light eco is extracted, Kira powers the robot and then, tired from the extraction, directs you to chase after Finn. Daxter joins you in the final chase, though the use of the light eco to fuel the robot, and in defeating Finn, you remove any chance for Daxter to return to his normal body. In a dramatic robot versus robot battle, you and Daxter defeat Finn and his sister, stop the release of Dark Eco, and save the world. Let's look at the clear differences. At this point in time, none of the characters had the names they have now. Daxter is referred to as your friend, Samos is your mentor, and Kira is your mentor's daughter. Gol is named Finn here, and Maya is just his evil sister. Somewhere along the journey is when we learn about the precursors and find a precursor robot buried underground, which can be powered by Light Eco. Now, this robot is also the one we would have used to defeat Gol and Maya in the end, but that obviously didn't happen. I think that this robot is the one that we found in Spider Caves. I've seen some people say that the robot in Spider Caves is Gol and Maya's, but let's take a look at this. Gol and Maya's robot is much bigger than this, and There are a lot of small differences in shape and detail from the two robots. I think that this robot was meant to be the one that we would have resurrected to beat Golem Maya. Why this was cut from the game we may never know, but one possibility that comes to mind is, if we used this in the final fight, the robot wouldn't be in the cave anymore, so if the player never obtained the power cell from climbing it, they wouldn't be able to after finishing the game. This is of course an early draft of the plot, so there's likely a myriad of other reasons they changed it. Time constraints would be another big part of it, cause this seems like an epic ending that would have been difficult to pull off. So on top of the robot fight being cut, Kira also would have become a master in the light eco sciences, and they would have found out how to change Daxter back before the very end. This would have been very interesting. Maybe in a potential Precursor Legacy sequel, Kira would have gone on to become more of a sage if this part of the story was kept. Who knows? So there's one more plot synopsis in the book, so let's take a very quick look at it. This time the story is mostly the same as the one we ended up getting. Some changes from the previous iteration are, Finn is now named Gol, and his evil sister is now named Maya. Your mentor is called the Green Sage, and Kira's name is still your mentor's daughter. This time around, Kira has a significantly lesser role. Eventually, we'll expose Gol and Maya's plot to destroy the world with Dark Eco and venture to stop them. They force the four sages to piece together a precursor robot to fulfill their evil plan. We eventually make our way to their lair, an underground precursor city, just as they're putting the finishing touches on the robot. You chase down the robot through twisting subterranean passageways until you corner them and battle it out to save the world. You defeat them, and Daxter gives up his one chance to be transformed back to normal. This is pretty much what we got in the end. The only real differences are of course Maya's name being changed to Maya, the fact that they had the sages construct the robot instead of just powering it, Golem Maya's lair being an underground precursor city, and that we have to chase down the robot before defeating it. Now, there are a few things from both of these early drafts that I think would have been really cool in the final game. For instance, I think it would have been cool to have the underground city and chase part from the second draft. Now, I know there is a bad stigma towards chases in final battles, and yes, I hate Crash 2's final boss just as much as anyone, but think about this for a sec. Gol and Maya are about to make their getaway, but we chase them down with the Zoomer, maybe shooting them down with some yellow eco to slow them down, but in the end, the Zoomer gets destroyed, and that's when we have the final fight. I think that would have been pretty cool. At least a lot better than an elevator ride. I think if Jak 2 didn't take the route that it did, and was similar to this game, Kira being a master of light eco would have been really cool. I also really like how the first draft incorporates Kira a lot more than even the final game. She went down and discovered the robot with Jak and Daxter, and figured out that it needs light eco to function, and that light eco is the key to restoring Daxter. All in all, I still really like the story we ended up getting, but these story drafts are really awesome to read about and see where the game could have gone at some point. Anyways guys, I think I'll leave it here for this video. There is so much more differences and awesome stuff in this book that I could talk about, but I thought I would just talk about some of the most interesting stuff. Now, like I said earlier, the Design Bible is now up for download in PDF form on the Jak and Daxter archive. There is a link in the description below which will take you to the page on it. And I just wanted to say that I spent 8 straight hours scanning and photoshopping this all together to make it readable for you guys, so I hope you guys enjoy it and show some support, it'd mean a lot. It did damage my book a little initially, but thankfully it didn't ruin it. I'll be doing the same for the other Design Bibles for the other 3 games once I get them. Anyway, I'll see you guys real soon. My Jak 2 Collector's Edition has nearly reached me, so there'll be a showcase video for that. If you guys liked this video and want to see me do this sort of thing for the other Design Bibles, let me know. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.